There's something deeply primal and emotionally grounding about a man gently placing his hand on a woman's lower back. It's not about dominance, control, or seduction in the obvious sense. It's about presence. It's about leadership without force. It's about protection without words. When done right, this one small act triggers something powerful inside her. It speaks to her nervous system in a language older than logic. It tells her, "You're safe. I'm here. You can relax now." That kind of energy doesn't just earn her attention. It builds emotional trust and activates her deepest instincts to bond, to follow, and to feel seen. A woman's lower back is a sensitive and subconscious touch point. It's a place the body instinctively protects. That's what makes it sacred ground, not to be abused, but to be respected. When you lead her through a doorway, a crowd, or across the street, and you gently guide her with your hand at the small of her back, you're telling her that she's under your watch. You're not dragging her. You're not clutching. You're simply guiding with grounded energy. That subtle gesture speaks volumes, especially when your touch is calm, slow, and intentional. It's not rushed. It doesn't grab attention. But she feels it, and it registers on a level that words can't replicate. Women don't want a man who's overly reactive or trying too hard. They respond to men who are emotionally calibrated, men who move with quiet certainty. When your hand rests on her back, it should feel like an anchor, not a trigger. It should say, "You're with someone who knows who he is." That's what unlocks her softness. That's what dissolves her inner tension. When she senses you're leading with care and not with ego, her guard lowers. She becomes more open, not just to your touch, but to your energy as a whole. The beauty of this kind of touch is in its restraint. It's not sexual in nature, though it absolutely lays the foundation for emotional intimacy. What it communicates is safety. And safety is what activates a woman's ability to trust, to feel, and to connect on a real level. When a woman feels safe, her oxytocin levels rise. That's the hormone responsible for bonding, attachment, and emotional closeness. It's not fireworks and instant passion. It's deeper than that. It's the foundation of love itself. Too many men underestimate the power of physical presence that doesn't demand anything. They try to impress with grand gestures, with loud words, or exaggerated confidence. But what often leaves the deepest impression is something far quieter. The way you move, the way you pay attention, and the way you guide with purpose. A hand on the lower back isn't just physical. It's symbolic. It means I'm tuned into you. That presence, when consistent, builds emotional tension in the best way. Not the kind that creates anxiety, but the kind that creates anticipation and connection. Now think about the moments when she's slightly uncertain, maybe stepping into a crowded room or navigating a busy sidewalk. These are small but significant opportunities. When you reach out in those moments, not to control her path, but to show her you're aware of her surroundings, it tells her that she doesn't have to walk alone. She can let her guard down. She can trust your energy. She can breathe. That's the kind of man women stay attached to, because your energy creates peace instead of pressure. Over time, your touch becomes associated with safety, with leadership, and with care. It triggers emotional memory. The next time she's anxious, stressed, or overwhelmed, your presence, especially in that simple guiding touch, reminds her of that grounded masculine energy that helped her feel okay. That's when she begins to crave you, not just for what you say or how you look, but for how you make her feel. That emotional craving is what transforms casual interest into real attachment. When you move with intention, when your touch carries emotional weight and not just physicality, you become more than just another man. You become someone who knows how to create safety and attraction at the same time. And that's rare. Because the truth is, women don't want chaos. They want to feel something deeper, something that whispers, not shouts. Something that says you're with a man who understands energy, boundaries, and timing. And that's exactly what your hand on her lower back in the right moment represents. It's quiet, it's powerful, and it stays with her long after your hand leaves. There's a certain kind of intimacy that doesn't rely on grand gestures or loud declarations. It's quiet, intentional, and deeply felt. One of the most powerful expressions of that intimacy is something as simple as brushing her hair away from her face. It sounds small, almost forgettable, but when a man does it with genuine presence and emotional depth, it sends a wave through her entire nervous system. It tells her without words, I see you, I'm paying attention, you matter. That's what activates a woman's heart, not the noise, but the awareness behind your actions. When a woman allows you close enough to touch her face or her hair, she's already lowered her defenses to some degree. She's in your space, and that space must be treated with care. Too many men mistake closeness for permission to rush, to control, or to satisfy their own needs first. But the truth is, the moment you reach out and slowly, intentionally brush that strand of hair from her face, you're offering more than physical contact. You're offering presence. And presence, for a woman, is love. It's attention. It's the rarest currency a man can offer. What happens in her mind during that moment is powerful. Your touch, slow and unrushed, triggers dopamine, the chemical responsible for pleasure and reward. But even more importantly, it activates oxytocin, the hormone responsible for bonding and connection. When your fingers move gently along her skin, when you tuck her hair behind her ear without speaking, you're creating a moment that's time pauses and all the noise around her disappears. In that second, all she can feel is that you are there, fully present, fully aware of her. This small act becomes even more potent when it's not part of an attempt to escalate physically. If you do it not as a lead up to anything, but as an end in itself, a moment of connection with no strings attached, it melts her even more. Why? Because it tells her you're not in a rush. You're not trying to extract something. You're simply showing her that you notice, that you care enough to adjust a tiny detail, to make her more comfortable, more seen. That's rare, that's magnetic. The difference between a man who touches with intention and one who touches out of habit is vast. One creates tension and emotional bonding, the other is quickly forgotten. When you take your time, when you lock eyes with her and move with purpose, not performance, you're giving her something most men never do, emotional oxygen. You're reminding her that real intimacy isn't built in the bedroom. It's built in the space between words, in the subtle, delicate actions that say, I'm not just here to take, I'm here to feel. Women live in a world where they're constantly looked at, spoken to, and touched without being seen. So when a man steps in with that rare energy, when he touches her hair with no agenda other than to deepen the moment, it disarms her, it draws her in. She won't always show it in that instant, but something inside her will shift. Her body will remember how safe it felt. Her heart will store that moment, and that memory becomes a thread that pulls her closer to you again and again. There's also something deeply grounding for the man in this. When you move slowly, when you tune in and make your energy soft yet focused, you step into your higher masculine. You're no longer chasing outcomes, you're guiding energy, you're creating harmony. And that's what emotionally intelligent men understand. Seduction without presence is just noise. But when your touch is infused with care and self-mastery, it becomes unforgettable. Think about how different this feels compared to rushing in with compliments or grabbing her hand out of nowhere. When you gently brush her hair aside, you're respecting her space while still claiming a moment of connection. It's both assertive and tender. And that duality, the strength of masculinity paired with emotional attunement, is what magnetizes her. That's what she'll crave when you're not around. That's the energy she'll measure every other man against. So don't underestimate this small moment. It's not just about fixing a stray hair or touching her cheek. It's about what you're communicating in silence, the way your eyes lock with hers, the way your breath slows, the way your fingers move gently without urgency. That's when she feels your masculine presence most clearly. That's when her walls begin to fall. Not because you pushed, but because you showed her something safe, something real. And when she feels that, when she experiences that level of attention and care, she won't forget it. Not today. Not months from now. Because it's not just the touch she remembers, it's the presence behind it. There's a particular kind of power that radiates from a man who knows how to lead without needing to overpower. And one of the most magnetic expressions of this quiet strength is when a man takes the initiative. Whether that means walking ahead slightly to lead her through a space, making a firm decision with clarity, or calmly creating direction in a situation where most people hesitate. A man who leads from grounded confidence, not from ego, becomes someone a woman instinctively follows. Not because she's submissive, but because she trusts his energy. And trust for a woman is the gateway to deep connection and respect. When a man hesitates too much, seeks constant validation, or defaults to indecisiveness, he loses that edge. Women are sensitive to a man's inner frame. They can feel when he's second-guessing himself or operating from a place of fear. On the surface, she may say she wants partnership and equality, and she does, but emotionally what ignites her is a man who knows where he's going and isn't afraid to guide. That doesn't mean barking orders. It means having vision, certainty, and emotional leadership. It means knowing how to read a room and make a call when others are unsure. When you walk slightly ahead of her, you're not devaluing her. If anything, you're shielding her. It's subtle, but it conveys your role as protector, as someone aware of the environment and ready to act if necessary. You're not dragging her. You're not ignoring her. You're simply stepping into your masculine energy, letting her know, I've got this. And that message, even if unspoken, calms her nervous system. It tells her she doesn't need to overthink or micromanage. She can rest in your direction. Decision-making is another arena where this shows up. When you can look at a menu, a situation, or a plan and say, let's go with this, without needing a 5-minute debate about every option, it signals clarity. Women are drawn to that clarity because it offers relief. The feminine energy is flow, feeling, and expansion. It doesn't like being boxed in, but when paired with a grounded masculine container, it thrives. When you take initiative, you're providing that container. You're offering structure. You're giving the feminine something to dance within. This is especially true in moments of tension or uncertainty. If plans fall apart or something unexpected happens, and you remain calm, adapt quickly, and lead with grace, she feels safe. She sees that you're not controlled by circumstances. You control how you respond. That steadiness makes her lean in. That's the energy of a man who doesn't just react to life, he shapes it. And women remember how you made them feel in those uncertain moments. If she felt secure, heard, and guided, she will attach to that memory more than anything you ever said in comfort. Taking initiative also demonstrates self-respect. It shows that you value your time, your decisions, and your direction. A man who always says whatever you want or I don't care, you decide might think he's being agreeable, but he's actually signaling passivity. That kind of energy doesn't make a woman feel protected or inspired. It puts pressure on her to lead, to choose, to carry the masculine role. And over time, that creates imbalance and resentment. Women want to relax into their feminine, but they can only do that when you show them you're comfortable in your masculine. What's important to remember is that this isn't about controlling her, it's about holding space. When you take initiative from a place of emotional maturity, you're not trying to dominate her. You're including her in your frame, in your vision, in your lead. That's attractive. That's what allows her to feel like she's with a man who can handle life, not just for himself, but for both of you. And that's rare. That's what separates the average guy from the man she can't stop thinking about. There will be moments when she challenges your lead, tests your certainty, or questions your decisions, not because she wants control, but because she needs to feel that your frame is strong enough to hold her. Don't fold. Don't get defensive. Just stay grounded. Stand by your decisions without arrogance. That's what reassures her. That's what makes her respect you more, not less, because deep down, every woman is drawn to a man who knows who he is and moves accordingly. So whether it's walking ahead, deciding where to eat, or choosing how to handle a challenge, remember this: when you lead with calm confidence, she doesn't just notice. It touches something inside her, something ancient, something instinctual. And that's when she begins to trust you, not just intellectually, but emotionally. That's when she begins to feel that rare magnetic pull toward you, and it doesn't go away easily. A woman's body language is a deeply revealing language of its own, and most men don't know how to read it. But when you do, when you take the time to truly notice the subtle shifts in her posture, the flicker in her eyes, the way she adjusts her hair, crosses her legs, leans in or pulls back, you begin to unlock something that words often hide. Her body will often say what her mouth is too scared or too proud to speak. And when you become fluent in this unspoken language, you become the kind of man who sees through her, not just at her. Most women are used to men who only react to surface signals. They respond to words or obvious actions, but they completely miss the nuance. That's why women test, why they feel uncertain, why they often feel misunderstood. Because the men around them aren't tuned in. They don't slow down enough to catch the messages she's actually sending. And those messages, they're everywhere. In the way she fidgets when she's nervous, the way she stiffens when she doesn't feel safe, or the way she mirrors your movements when she's drawn to you. But to catch them, you need to be present, not distracted, not performing, present. There's something incredibly seductive about a man who observes rather than reacts. When you're locked into her energy, not just her words, she feels it, and it changes the dynamic. She starts leaning in more. She starts opening up. Her feminine instinct tells her, this man sees me, and not just physically, emotionally, energetically. And that is rare. That kind of attunement is what builds real intimacy. Not the kind based on rushed attraction or superficial flirtation, but the kind that quietly builds in her subconscious. The kind she can't explain, but can't escape either. Let's say you're talking to her and she suddenly looks away, or her smile fades ever so slightly. Most men would ignore that, move on, keep talking. But a man who's attuned will slow down. He'll notice. Maybe he'll shift the tone, soften his energy, or simply pause and ask, you just went somewhere. What was that? That level of emotional awareness is disarming. It creates a safety she didn't know she needed. Because most of the time, women are forced to carry their emotions alone, even in relationships. But when you show that you can feel her shift without her saying a word, she feels held. And that kind of emotional containment is deeply attractive. Reading body language also helps you move at her pace. You'll know when she's inviting you closer, even if she's not saying it. The slight tilt of her head, the way she angles her body toward you, how she plays with her jewelry or lets her voice drop. These are all cues. If you're paying attention, you can respond without breaking the moment. You don't have to guess, you don't have to ask, you just feel it. And when you get it right, when you match her energy, respond in sync, it creates a kind of rhythm between the two of you, a dance that doesn't need choreography. But perhaps even more importantly, when you notice that her body is closed off, arms crossed, posture tight, eyes darting away, you don't push, you pull back, not out of fear, but out of respect. That's something women remember. A man who didn't push, who didn't try to force chemistry or connection, but who noticed her signals and honored them. That communicates strength, discipline, and maturity. It tells her you're not desperate, and more than that, you're emotionally safe. And for a woman, emotional safety is the foundation of everything. The more you master this, the more confident you become, not because you know how to manipulate, but because you know how to connect. You stop feeling anxious or confused about where you stand with her, because her body tells you. Her behavior shows you. And even if her words contradict it, you're wise enough to know which signals matter most. A woman may say she's fine, but if she pulls away slightly, if her eyes drop, if her energy shifts, you know something's off. And when you respond to that with sensitivity, not force, you gain trust. In the end, the men who win aren't the loudest or the flashiest. They're the ones who feel her energy, who notice the way she curls her fingers when she's vulnerable, or bites her lip when she's unsure. The man who can sit in silence, read her cues, and respond without words, that's the man she'll think about long after the conversation ends. Because he saw what others didn't. He understood her without her needing to explain. And that's a connection that doesn't fade. When a man pulls away and goes silent, especially after consistently being available, communicative, or emotionally present, it creates a powerful psychological disruption in a woman's mind. Silence, when it's not rooted in immaturity or passive aggression, but in strength and intentional distance, speaks volumes. One of the most fascinating reactions women often have to a man's silence is that they begin to overanalyze everything. Every word, every moment, every expression they once overlooked now becomes evidence, a clue, something to decode. This isn't just about curiosity. It's about the internal shift that happens when access is revoked. Suddenly, the man who used to be there becomes a mystery, and in that vacuum, overthinking begins. Women by nature are emotionally perceptive and deeply intuitive. When a connection breaks, even temporarily, their minds don't just accept it passively. They want answers. They start wondering, why isn't he calling me? Why did he suddenly stop replying with the same energy? Was it something I said? Did he meet someone else? Does he not care anymore? Or worse, does he care but is choosing not to show it? These questions loop in her head again and again, sometimes to the point of obsession. Not because she's weak, but because her emotional brain is hardwired to seek closure and emotional balance. What makes silence so powerful is that it forces her to sit with uncertainty, and uncertainty is emotionally taxing. When a man distances himself in a composed, confident, and non-needy way, it disrupts her emotional rhythm. If she was used to your validation, your presence, your emotional availability, the absence of those things triggers discomfort. It's like trying to replay a song that suddenly disappears mid-chorus. The unresolved note keeps echoing in her mind. That's the beginning of her overthinking spiral. What's important to understand here is this. You don't need to say anything. The more you explain yourself, the more you try to defend or justify your distance, the more you weaken the impact. Silence, when paired with masculine calm, creates a storm in her mind. She starts filling in the blanks herself, and often what she imagines is far more intense than anything you could say. She'll replay your last conversation, analyze your tone, scroll through old messages, look at photos, wonder if you're thinking about her, and question whether she's now losing the grip she once had. That's psychological pressure. And if she has any real emotional investment in you, it'll hit her hard. The real irony is that this emotional overload, this overthinking, can eventually turn into regret. She might start thinking about the ways she may have disrespected you, taken you for granted, or failed to appreciate the masculine energy you brought into her life. And that regret, when left to stew in silence, becomes a powerful motivator. She may act defensive at first. She might distract herself or pretend not to care. But deep inside, the silence speaks louder than anything else. It says, I am no longer playing the game by your rules. I don't need to chase. I choose to step back. That's power. But this only works if your silence is rooted in self-respect, not manipulation. If you're sulking, angry, or secretly waiting by the phone, your energy won't match your silence. But if you've truly detached to focus on your growth, your goals, your purpose, and your peace, then that silence is authentic. And women can feel that difference. A man who is quiet because he's evolved is not someone they forget easily. He becomes the standard by which other men are judged. So don't underestimate the power of pulling back. Don't underestimate what your absence can do to her thoughts. Let her mind become the battleground while you remain composed. Because when a woman starts overthinking, it means she's emotionally unsettled. And that disturbance is often the beginning of her awakening, an awakening to your value, to what she had, and to what she might be losing. The longer a woman goes without you, without your attention, your presence, your energy, the more the silence begins to echo in her life in ways she never expected. Time has a unique way of doing what words cannot. It quietly reveals what was real, what was taken for granted, and what she thought she could live without. When you remove yourself from her world and stay removed, not out of anger, but out of strength, what you're really doing is creating space for clarity. And that clarity is often not immediate. It builds slowly, day by day, in her mind and in her emotion. First, she might feel liberated. There may be a sense of relief, pride, or even arrogance. She might believe that cutting off contact or watching you walk away is something she can handle. She tells herself that she's unfazed, maybe even better off. But time doesn't lie. And as the days stretch into weeks, that confidence can quietly unravel. Because what many women don't realize is that your absence isn't just about not seeing your name pop up on their phone. It's about not having your stability, your presence, your masculine grounding that once made her feel safe, even if she never acknowledged it out loud. This is where time does its most powerful work. You see, the human mind has a tendency to filter out noise and amplify emotion over time. That means the arguments, the tension, the misunderstandings, they begin to fade. But the moments where she felt desired, protected, emotionally seen, those moments begin to shine through. Memory becomes selective. And when she sits alone at night or scrolls through her phone, that emptiness isn't just about boredom. It's about the emotional space you used to fill now feeling noticeably empty. Time also allows her to compare. The men she meets now might be charming or new, but they often lack what you brought to the table. Maybe they don't listen the way you did. Maybe they don't make her feel as understood. Or maybe she doesn't feel as emotionally safe. That's when the realization starts to creep in. You weren't just another guy. You were a man who brought something different, something she can't quite replicate. And the longer she goes without you, the more undeniable that truth becomes. So here's what's really happening beneath the surface. She's starting to confront the reality that you're not chasing her, that you're not trying to prove your worth or beg for her time. And that shift in energy forces her to reconsider everything. A woman can only stay in control of a dynamic when she feels your energy constantly orbiting her. But when your orbit vanishes, she feels that loss. And that's when longing is born. Not through words, but through time. You become a mystery again, a question mark. And questions hold more power than answers when it comes to human emotion. Of course, this all depends on one thing, your ability to stay grounded. The longer you stay away, the more your silence must be fueled by purpose, not by bitterness, not by passive aggression, but by real internal growth. If you've used the time away to level up mentally, emotionally, physically, she'll sense it. Women have an intuitive radar for evolved masculine energy. And when she sees that the man she once had is becoming even stronger, even more disciplined, even more self-assured, it ignites something deep inside her. That fear that she might have lost something truly valuable starts to take root. What you're doing by letting time pass in silence is allowing her to meet herself without you. And that's a confrontation many women aren't ready for. It's in the moments she used to share with you, the songs, the places, the inside jokes, that she'll realize how deeply your energy still lingers. And the more time passes without your return, the more that realization starts to burn. Because the longer she goes without you, the more she feels what she thought she could forget.